Very recently, Reactionary Expat put out a video where he was talking about a friend of his that is quite left-leaning, and obviously they have pretty differentiated politics, you could say. And now, his strategy has conventionally been to just listen to the person rather than revealing his true colors, as it were. And generally speaking, that's been my strategy with people as well. And so in that conversation that he had with his friend, soon to be former friend, I guess, the topic of diversity came up, and talked about the academic performance of Australia and how certain countries in Asia, such as South Korea or China, are just outperforming Australia in many capacities. And he apparently, of his own accord, conceded that they're more homogenous, and that might have something to do with it. Now, that's a very unusual concession on the part of somebody who's very left-leaning. But the interesting aspect and element of that conversation was less the concession and more the fact that after conceding that, according to Reactionary Expat in the story, he said, well, that's just the price that you have to pay to maintain diversity, and it's warranted and it's worth it. And I suppose, obviously, Reactionary Expat was a bit nonplussed by this, understandably. And so I want to talk about my own kind of acquiescence to a situation that just seems to be irrevocable, ineluctable, and just irreversible largely at the moment, by telling you, regaling you with a tale of my own encounter, a similar encounter with a friend, very left-leaning. Although the focus was not on diversity per se, very similar topic. Now, this is a German guy who supports the immigration policies of Angela Merkel and just the general sort of EU idea of let's import lots of third worlders because whatever. Although in his case, and this is, I think, the salient bit, he's very much in support of it for moral and ethical reasons. So you want to take in all of these refugees, and he never really differentiated between economic migrants and people in genuine need. I guess his assumption is that most of them are in genuine need. But he made this point to me at the time, about a month or two ago. He said, look, because he was honest, he said, hey, it's obvious in the numbers that we're receiving that some number of people are not going to be necessarily the best behaved, and some number of people are going to just be criminal in some cases and commit crimes. Hence the incidents that we've observed and heard about, the incident, whether it was the axe attack in, I believe, in Bavaria, or the things that happened in Cologne, etc. Well, these are just sort of things that we need to accept if we're going to be moral and ethical and upright people, helping out those in need. And I posed the question to him. I said, well, okay, that's an honest perspective, but how much is enough, and at what point in time is it sufficient? I mean, if in being, at least according to his vision or worldview, being an ethical and upright person entails fundamentally changing the nature and structure of your society such that it's no longer safe, that the economic situation worsens. I mean, everything you could imagine, but mostly that it's no longer safe because of criminal elements. Is that worth it? And he kind of dodged that question. He didn't say just yes flat out, but he said, something to the effect of, you need to stick to your principles and we need to do the right thing. I didn't really counter, but what I said was, well, nobody's forcing South Korea and Japan to take in lots of third world people. And he said, it sounded very vague. He said, well, there could be a UN mandate that they do so. And yet no mandate is forthcoming and they're not required to do so. And I think they would resist it tooth and nail, to be honest. And I left that conversation and I thought to myself, interesting. And I thought about it for a while and reflected on it. And then, of course, Reactionary Expats video, and I'll be posting a link to that video in the low bar about sort of the post-political world came out. And I thought, maybe I can offer a comment. Or better yet, I make a video about this because I find myself very much in the same position. Now, Reactionary Expat pointed out correctly that we're very much in that, and I've made a video about this too, this sort of either-or mentality. Although he specifically was talking about politics, I was talking in an older video more generally about these things. This either-or. So you're either here or you're there, and there's no compromise. There's no middle ground. In fact, you can't even strike up a deal in the middle ground because the person on the opposite pole is your enemy by default. There can be no alliance, no compromise, no nothing. And I think the main thrust of Reactionary Expats video was that people have become unreachable. In his case, this guy is saying, well, we need to have diversity, so whatever the price. In the case of my friend, he never used the term diversity, but we need to help people. And even if helping those people comes at the price of destroying your own society, or at least significantly reducing its standard of living vis-a-vis crime and things of that nature. And we need to maintain this because we need to be moral and upright people. And the other interesting thing in reference to this was that I sent him a video clip interview of this interview that I had referenced in a discussion with Red Pill Germany with the ancient historian, German historian Egon Fleig, who would describe himself as very much being on the left and yet is described as being on the right in the kinds of arguments he offers. And basically stating as much as, look, certain values need to be defended and fought for, and if you're not willing to do that, well, that's a failure on your part. And I sent him this video and I never got a response. Now, whether my friend never responded because he just didn't have the time, busy, because he didn't like the content and he didn't want his views challenged. Now, essentially what I'm saying is, and I'm in agreement here with Reactionary, that people have reached the point of no return in many ways, and positions have been solidified, and we're not going to get people off their high horse, whether it comes to, we need diversity just because diversity is good with no explanation as to why, or we need to be moral and upright people, so let's just take in lots of third worlders irrespective of the consequences. These people are just too far gone, and I'm kind of done talking to them. And recently, and I'm a bit, actually quite tired, but also a bit sad, the atmosphere of things. To a Dutch friend, and coming to the conclusion that just Europe, as we know it, is effectively gone, and there will be no short-term recovery, and by that, any time in our lifetime. Everything that we used to know, that used to be familiar about Europe, is changing, and largely not for the better. And I've kind of struggled with this idea. I've always struggled with this in general because even before the rot had really set in, I had noticed that upon moving to Europe for the first time as a young man, noticed that Europeans didn't really care much about Europe. They didn't care about the history, the culture, or the arts, the language, the background in general. They were just kind of indifferent. And then, of course, it was shocking to me because I always thought that was an American trait, to be ignorant of the Occident and not care about the heritage and the patrimony of the Occident. But it turned out that everyone was this way. And so it doesn't actually surprise that things have come this far and that people acquiesce to it and allow it to happen. It doesn't shock me at all, frankly speaking. The issue I'm facing is just my own sort of coming to terms with this particular reality and making my peace with it. And by that, I mean not rolling over and accepting it and saying, well, there's nothing we can do, so I'll just go shoot myself in the head. I'm not of that sort, but trying to figure out a role in all of this as a inconsequential, insignificant, and relatively dumb individual, that person that I am. What can I do? And the only thing I can come up with for myself is the role that many of us, I suppose, have taken on as a unremarkable, insignificant, dumb person. That of a kind of chronicler. Not a remarkable one. I'm no Edward Gibbon or David Hume, but offering commentary and documenting the changes, if only for posterity's sake. What is happening now? Well, if the internet remains intact, if YouTube does, then there will be many documents for future historians to study. How this all came about, how the rot set in. There will be wisdom and there will be knowledge that future historians, if they do indeed exist, will have access to. You study ancient history, there are many records lost, hidden histories, or lost histories rather, that we don't have access to. We lost so much in terms of content in the fires that ultimately destroyed the Library of Alexandria. And so, the difference here is the database and what we have access to. I think it will always sadden me that Europe is basically gone. And if it's not completely gone, it's essentially gone for the foreseeable future. Well, you have to make your peace with that. And where you fit in as an individual in this decline, and you could just look at it as a sort of a decline of the West in general. I don't have high stakes in the United States. I mean, I was born there, but I have no connection to the place, and I wouldn't really describe myself as an American. But, I mean, the rot set in there too, in many ways worse. What is our role in this? That is a big question. And most of us are insignificant and inconsequential and dumb. But I think we do what we can and we do what we must. And in doing that, we might be a kind of retrospective for future generations, for future people. I can't really think of anything else that we can do or that we can be, most of us. Even the Elon Musks of the world are hard-pressed to really change things. So what can one lone, dumb, and insignificant YouTuber such as myself do? We know the cultural warriors are not doing much. And they have far greater influence. And they're supposedly fighting for the quote-unquote right ideas. Well, no, I think it's too far gone, and people are too far gone, and you can't reach them. And discussion is not an option, really, because there's nothing left to discuss. Battle lines have been drawn, and people have dug themselves into their trenches. I just don't know anymore. However, I think the only thing I can do, and I feel resolute in this, is document things, make my own contributions, however pitiful and small they are, and fight the so-called good fight to the extent that I can. Sometimes I wonder if making arguments, assuming they're good arguments, is worth it just for the sake of it, even if people are non-responsive and non-reactive. I just don't know. But I do think we need to do what we can in our own capacities. And that can be some small smidgen of fulfillment and worthwhile on some level. I'm curious what you guys think. It seems that the polarization has come full circle. People can no longer be reached. They can't be reasoned with. And the rot and decline are too far gone. It is reminiscent of things that have happened in humanity's past. Rome comes to mind, and similar things. And one is left to wonder what these people thought and did when they say the early 200s Rome, or even the 300s AD, when it was just patently obvious that Rome was not going to recover, despite, say, the reforms of Diocletian. Do we even have a Diocletian these days? I don't think we do. So let me know what you think in the comment section. I'm curious. The fall and decline. How have you made your peace with it? How do you see yourself in it? Do you see yourself at all? Are you part of it? Well, that's all I have to say on the topic. Not exactly a cheery topic, but one I think that needs to be addressed because it's on a lot of our minds, those of us who care. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.